Also, your title. Do you want to be introduced as like a DP and anything else, like a filmmaker DP? That's what I was gonna originally go with, but anything you prefer?
Sure. I would just DP's cool. That's so weird. That's an interesting question.
Right? Like, I'm just, you never know who's watching, right? So it's
Yeah,
like
it's like I don't know. Like,
I want to
what
make
do
sure.
I call myself?
Oh, dude, I had the same conversation. Wait, hold on. I'm gonna wait for
Okay.
for the podcast. Alrighty. Hello and welcome to an episode of the Sunday Vibes podcast. This is your host Habib Edits, and with me is my guest, a very long time social media friend, or a friend in general. But we met and we started talking through social media, as most of my friends and I have done. David Mejia.
What's up?
David is a filmmaker DP from Texas. And like I said in the intro, we started messaging somehow through Instagram. I believe I found him one way or another, and I just kept bugging him and asking him questions about everything. And I broke this man down. I broke him down, and now he's here.
And I finally met you. Like only shit. Now it's like actually, can I cuss? Is that cool?
Yeah, you're good. You're good.
Okay. I only met you like a month and a half ago. About now.
Yeah, it's been a month and a half. We finally met, even though we talk like at least a couple times a week. I want to say.
Yeah, I felt like, dude, we had so much interaction, and then it's really interesting because I finally was like, okay, I can now put a face to the name. Like Habib Edits, because that's all I know you as. Like, I don't know, of course we talk and I know you through that way, but I didn't like, what does he look like? How tall is he? And then seeing you, it's like, oh, hell yeah, finally. Because I think that's what's really rewarding sometimes about social media is you meet these people and it's like, hell yeah, you finally meet them.
Yeah.
Like, especially here, like in Houston, there's just like this whole like artist community and like all these kids you kind of follow and then you finally meet them and it's like, oh shit, like nice to meet you.
Yeah, it's actually thinking about like the whole artist community in Houston. I talked about this with Noel a while back. Uzzer. I talked to him when we were actually right before the whole Pink Milk event that we were at together. We were talking before everything started, and yeah, it was like the same. We were talking about the same thing where we're like, yo, there's so many artists, filmmakers, and creatives in general, like around our age, like somewhere early 20s. We're all like actually really good at their craft, but for one reason or another, we just haven't met each other. But we all like hit each other up. We all know of each other through social media, and it's just like the craziest thing to me.
Yeah, and I think that's really interesting because I think Houston as a whole just has like many like niches where it's just like there's little pockets of people. Like honestly, like before doing the Pink Milk thing, Josh, the director for that video, me and him are like in the commercial circuit here in Houston, like working on like the car commercials and like the big pharma commercials that come into town. Like that's our world, and I think there's also a whole nother like indie world where there's like a whole other like just catalog of other filmmakers and artists and shit. Yeah. And the same thing goes for music, like I started up in music video and then quickly got out of it because I was like, wait, this is not what I want to do. And like the situations I was getting into, and then like, and by situations I just mean like being on a shitty set where like you're I don't know, you've been there for 10 hours and you haven't eaten, or like there's no official lunch break and you're just kind of going, and it sounds kind of like a boohoo, but I mean in reality once you work in commercial you get used to these sort of standards.
Yeah,
and in a way they're kind of humane. It's like, yeah, like I mean like filmmakers kind of get abused in a way where it's just like we work and we're expected to work 12-hour days while other people work 6-8 hour days, and that's like a long day for them.
Yeah,
so I don't know,
10 hours and they're like, oh my god, I'm broken.
Yeah, dude. And I've unfortunately gone double that,
Yeah,
so it's just like,
especially
you see, like you see the negative effects of that,
Yeah, it's a lot of burnout at times too, and it's like the industry itself is. I'm fairly new, right? So I'm only working in like not really like professional commercials like you're doing, like really big high end stuff. I'm more low brow, just on my own production studio, whatever we're running. In the past, I've worked on other sets and stuff, and yeah, same thing there. It's like 13, 14 hour days, and it's like if we're lucky, we can get a lunch break, or if we're on schedule, we can get a lunch break. But it's not like anyone's requiring it, right? It's not like someone's gonna
Yeah.
come in and be like, "Oh no, you got to give these people their lunch break." They're human. Um, and even stuff like I don't know, just like day to day stuff, just working conditions, and the people you work with. Sometimes a lot of word of mouth type thing, and you
Yeah.
don't exactly know where you're shooting that day, or like what the day's gonna look like, which is the mystery. Like the mysterious part of the whole thing is like what kind of really gets me is like, oh cool, I don't know what I'm gonna be doing today, or oh cool, this is gonna happen, or that's gonna happen, and you just have to go with the flow type of thing.
Yeah.
But I also have friends who are more, everyone's graduated now, so they're all like at their professional jobs and stuff. And they're here working 9 to 5, 8 to 6 or whatever, and they're killing it. They love it there. But when I tell them about, oh, I can't hang out all weekend because I'm shooting or filming, or I can't, come out to dinners because I'm shooting or doing this or that, and it's like it gets tough, honestly. I don't know about you, but it gets
No,
really
yeah, on my end, it's actually really interesting because, actually, like, since like I don't know, since like last year, I have found so much like relief working, like hanging out with like my non-film friends,
mm,
because like my film friends, it's just like I think it becomes a lot of like talking shop,
yeah.
and for me that just gets really old kind of quick. You know what I mean? Like talking about what projects we're all working on, and like talking about like, oh dude, like how crappy or how good this job was or whatever. Or, like, oh man, I worked like it's cool, but then it's just like, yo, like there's more to it than this.
Yeah.
And so I feel that when you say you can't hang out with friends, because then I also have like my regular outside of film friends, and it's like,
Mhm.
they have their jobs, and it's like, oh dude, like let's hang out, and it's like, oh, like I'm busy, like I
Yeah.
can't. And then you feel like you're missing out on stuff. You have like FOMO, and not only that, it's like the summer times too, dude. Like
Oof. Dude, when
aside
people
from
come
like,
back,
yeah, like all my friends from high school, all my friends that I grew up with, and like that I kick it with in the summer, it's like I hardly see any film friends during the summer, because it's like I'm spending time with like my actual non-film friends.
yeah.
And that's not to say that like my film friends suck or like my summer friends are better. It's
No, no,
just
no,
like
no. We
it's
just
just a
need
way
to
to like,
you need to turn off at times. There's always that
yeah,
like, hey, okay, I gotta respect myself and my brain at one point or another and be like, hey, for my own sanity, I don't want to talk about work. It's like, you would do this with anyone, right? Like if you have a family member or a spouse or a partner, right? You're like, hey, can you stop talking about work? Let's talk about this other thing instead, or let's talk and be more human. Um, but I think
and I think, yeah,
no, go ahead.
I've also found that like some like friendships or some relationships in the industry here like don't extend outside of work. It's kind of like in high school or like middle school or any type of schooling, when you'd have like your class friend who you
Yeah.
would sit next to them, but then like outside of class it's just like, yo, what's up, and then it's kind of it. But in class it's kind of just like, well, this is the person I'm going to choose to sit next to because they're cool and I can pass time with them. I find that a lot actually at work too, where it's just like, yo, you're cool, like I like you, but
Mm-hmm.
like outside, like our relationship doesn't extend outside of work, which
Wow.
feels kind of shitty
Yeah.
to say, and I hope it doesn't sound that shitty, but like, you know what I mean?
It's a
Like,
mutual thing?
I would say so. I mean,
Yeah.
because it's like, these people aren't texting me to like hang out and stuff.
Nah. I
And it's
feel
really
like
funny because a lot of like my good friends in film have actually started as that and then transitioned, because it was like, hey, let's go get a drink.
yeah.
And then it was like, yeah. Another thing too is that Houston's industry is just a lot, at least in, the commercial industry, is just a lot like of older people, dude. Like
Oh yeah.
I'm working with like,
That's
I'm
true.
usually the youngest kid on set. Like the next person who's as old as me is like 25 or 26, And
Yeah, I
even then
feel
I
that.
feel like there's a difference between me being 21 and then like that person being 26. Like
Mm-hmm.
there's a generational thing there. Um Given I do have friends who like are like older,
Yeah.
but again, those are like the few people. Other than that, it's like I find myself kind of feeling like an outsider on set, where it's just like kind of put your head down and go to work. Which sometimes is nice, and other times it's kind of shitty, where it's just like I kind of want to be on set with friends. And so recently, actually, this 2020 has been a lot of like being on set with friends, and
The
being on set with like the people that I actually enjoy being around. Not to say that the other people I don't enjoy being around, but just that like
No, call them out.
I'm on set with like people who are like are my age, and like we actually like we like the same things, and we're
Yeah,
all very passionate because we still have that like young spunk of like we want to go out and get the bread. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Instead of like
hustle.
instead of like people who've already been in the game for like decades and maybe even just hit a decade, and it's just it's just different. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the
Uh,
experience comes in, and I think it's like at one point or another, the excitement goes away. Even though
yeah,
I'm sure they love their job and that's why they come back for it, but the excitement of like learning something new just goes away at one point or another, and it's more about like, okay, I need to get this thing done, and then it's just and it's like, oh, okay, I guess I can't make any jokes or I can't be silly because like I'm naturally like a very silly person. I'm always cracking jokes no matter what happens.
yeah.
um that's just the way I cope with things. And sometimes when I was on set, I was like, ooh, they fucked up their lines. And I would want to like, say something to, just break the tension in the room. But I was like, oh, I might get yelled at and like just kicked out, if anything.
Yeah, well, I came up as a PA, like
Yeah.
at work, and I still PA from every now and then. Well, but I'm starting to do it less and less. But I came up doing that,
Hmm.
and you're at the bottom of the food chain, so it's like you're not gonna speak out because if you do,
Definitely.
you might not get the call from that person again. Next thing you know, you're kind of blacklisted in a way in the
Oof.
city, and then like people are just like, he doesn't really know how to be on set. He talks or he like steps over his boundary, and it's so I think just coming up as a PA, you kind of learn to just be quiet because I definitely have a much louder, much more eccentric personality, I'd like to say.
Hmm.
And so sometimes being on a set where like you kind of have to be hush hush and quiet
Yeah.
is can be like weird.
Yeah.
But it's really funny because when I DP, that's totally different. I want everybody to be hush hush quiet
Ah.
because I want the space to like think, and I want the like, dude. When I was shooting Museo, like we had like 15 extras, or like we had like 10 to 15 extras, like all
Uh-huh.
these girls just in the space. And
Hmm.
for like those of you who don't know, Museo is like it's a short film centered around like sex workers and how they play a much larger role than just being sex workers. It's they do a lot of behind the scenes for like the modern day like masculine psyche, you know what I mean?
True.
And so we had like these 10 to 15 girls in this house, and obviously we have that same amount of people but in crew members, so we have 20 people in like one space.
Yeah.
And I'm just trying to talk to Josh, who's my gaffer, and just try to talk to him and like set the lights, and like, dude, I'm hearing all this chit chatter around.
Yeah, it's
And then
distracting.
like and then there's just a bunch of moving parts. Everyone's asking like Anastasia's director, or they're asking me like, whoa, where should I put this, and it's just like, yo, y'all gotta like. And we had a first AD, but I think like our 10 to 15 extras were inexperienced like people on
Mm,
set, like
yeah.
they had not been on screen before. And then half of our crew members were people that we work with in the commercial industry, and then another half of our crew members were like people who just like wanted to help out.
Yeah.
So it's kind of just like there's that mix of like some people don't know like who to talk to
Experience
about a
and
certain thing.
inexperience. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it became like a thing where I was just like, yo, there's like too many people talking. Like, let's just, like, can I just talk to Josh for a second alone and like get the lights set? Because that way we can move faster. Because actually, by the second day, it started becoming like a thing where we were kind of losing time because it was sort of like having to settle everyone down, then
Hmm.
sort of set the lights, or then talk to Anastasia about what she wants to see and what's going to happen. And it became
Yeah.
this long buffer of like kind of like yo everybody, and even times like the extras would like give some suggestions and be like, oh, what if you did this? And it's kind of just like this whole like if one person does it, then more people are going to do it.
Yeah.
you know
Yeah. Everyone piggybacks off each other at times, and sometimes it's okay. It really isn't like okay ever really, because like if I'm ever in a train of thought, it's easily disrupted by other people, and it's like what was I thinking? What was I thinking? For me, I've never really had a big set like that where I'm like in charge of so many people, or
hmm
working with so many people. All the documentaries and stuff that I've shot are like pretty much like me and someone else, or like four people set or a crew at max. And again, it's
yeah
all like close friends who are like, we're all filmmakers, we all want to get better and stuff. And as an editor, basically that's where I came up. Like I just was an editor, and now I'm transitioning into being a more filmmaker director kind of person. But as an
Yeah.
editor, like I've never really had anyone, sit in the editing bay with me like that, right? When I was an assistant editor, I was, someone would give me the footage, they would tell me what to do, and I would do it for them, right? Whether it's organized timelines, organized footage, label and stuff, right? All the meticulous stuff that I have to do. That's what happened. And I was like, cool, I just have to do this. And then I would ask the editor questions later on after the project, not while they're editing. Um, but yeah, so while I'm on set, I've had to, get a bit. There's been one or two times where I've been like very frustrated with like how much light we're losing, and I'm like, hey, we got to stop talking. Everyone, hey, we got to focus up real quick. And I gotta like put my foot down a little. I feel really bad when I do that though, because I'm like, I don't want to be like the bossy pants here. But then again, if I don't do that, we don't get any work done that we came to do. So it's more like I have to do this. I have to do this type of thing.
Yeah, I mean, dude, being higher up, being a department head, that's like, it's kind of like when people ask me like, what is being a DP like? I'm just like, dude, I don't even know what to tell you, because some jobs it feels like you're just carrying the whole project on your back,
Mm-hmm.
And I've been on commercials where I'm like an AC or I'm just a PA, and I've seen like the DPs carry the commercial or carry the project on their back. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I've seen other DPs just like not necessarily take a seat back, but you can tell they did so much prep with the director and so much prep with like all the department heads that
Yeah.
they get there on the shoot day and it's kind of just like almost having fun.
Yeah. Pre-production really goes a long way.
Yeah. So, I mean, dude, there's some jobs where you just kind of feel like an asshole because you just like, you have to put your foot down, and sometimes there's no other way. I think being firm can get confused a lot with being a dick, and it's like that's totally not true.
Yeah.
I think sometimes you just know that like you're getting paid to do a job, and if something or someone is hindering you from doing that because they're deciding to not necessarily be professional, but maybe they're just getting lost in a situation where like maybe someone is too playful. You know, it's like, yo, you have to hit them up and be like, or you take them to the side and be like, yo, like the energy's great, but like right now is just not the time.
I love the energy, man, but you gotta bring it down here. You're a 10, I need a 2. You gotta, cut it.
For sure.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's all about like, processing and working through the waves, and whatever comes at you, you gotta take it and roll with the punches, really. But hey, how are you liking DPing?
Dude, DPing has been insane.
Yeah.
It's been like kind of insane, honestly, like to say the least, like this year, because like I started the year off before all of this like quarantine stuff. Like I think I only PA'd once, and it was because I needed the money.
Yeah.
And then I only AC'd once because the money was good or whatever. Other than that, I was DPing, or I was in the I was like prepping for like a shoot.
That's awesome. It's really good.
But dude, it's been like super interesting, actually, like thinking about like how far I've come and like what things matter to me and what things actually stopped mattering to me, and what things still linger. And by that I mean like, I don't know, you stop worrying less about like the Instagram frames.
Yes.
And you start worrying more about like the actual project itself, or like you stop worrying about certain things in prep, like doing a shot list, because you're not going to follow it anyway, and actually just focus on like what needs to happen in the scene and like what you need to cover.
Yeah.
And sort of what things you want to do, in tandem with the director and tandem with like every crew member. And that ends like spending more time doing that is actually better than spending time doing like the shot list that you're probably only going to follow for like the first 2 hours of the day.
Shot lists are pretty useless. I mean, the only thing they're useful for are for like clients and being like, hey, this is what this is what I'm envisioning it to look like, and that's all I've really used it for when I'm when I'm on set, it's usually just like it's more of a run and gun kind of setup, right? So
Hmm.
it's like, hey, we're gonna get this shot, this shot, and this shot, and I'm like, cool. What am I feeling in this space though? Like when I get to the space, whether it's the lighting, whether it's the people, or like whatever we have in front of us, the product itself is like, all right. So what's the best way to utilize all of this to tell a story? Um, the shot list I've used is more for like, again, clients, then showing them exactly like what I'm envisioning. And then also my crew, actually, whenever I'm working with like a DP or a cinematographer or someone like that. I'm like, hey, this is what I'm looking at, sort of, and I just let them take the reins on that, and that's their whole thing, like do whatever you want, kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, in a way, I storyboard with the director. Like, if there's certain things we're seeing, like maybe what I'm articulating verbally they can't see, then I'll just like
Mm,
get my sketchbook or get my notebook and just like sketch it out real quick. Um, I used to do lighting plots when I first started DPing
yeah.
because I heard that like every DP did it. So it's just like at the beginning of me DPing like a couple years ago, it's kind of like just doing whatever things I heard the other DPs did, like big DPs I respect. So it's like
Yeah, might
I
as
always
well
heard
do
like
it, right?
lighting. Yeah, I always heard lighting plots, and like at first it was a great idea because I think it was a way for me to sort of put my head in that space and like put my head in a very technical position where it's just like, okay, sure, I want to see this really beautiful shot, but like, how do I get it there technically?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and but then kind of like the shot list, when I'd get to set, I'd realize I didn't know enough about lighting to follow the plot, and
Mm,
so this is like 2017, so like going to 2018 into 2019, I stopped doing plots altogether because I knew that it was kind of pointless
yeah.
because my knowledge of lighting was so like, in a way, it was kind of young. I felt like I
Mm-hmm.
didn't know enough to know what I wanted. And now actually going to 2020, I've actually went back to lighting. Like when we were doing the pink milk thing, we went to lighting diagrams because
Yeah.
one for speed, and two because, oh wow, like I actually kind of know what I want to see, or I know what if I put a light in this position, it'll do this.
Yeah, you kind of have the
And I
experience of like how this equipment works, right? So now
Yeah,
you can like
exactly.
actually envision it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And so then like the lighting plots actually become useful, and I'm able to sit with them and like be like, okay, yeah, what I drew up is exactly what I want here. Let's make it happen.
Yeah.
Versus like maybe a year ago, it would have been like, I like where the key light is, but like maybe let's change the background light, or can I get that in a different temperature?
Mm-hmm.
But it's also just experience, dude.
Yeah,
Like
definitely.
the more you do prep and the more you do like previs and then be on set and like see the previs come into fruition, you're able to after every job you're able to be like, okay, well, what we thought was going to go a certain way didn't, but now I know how it's going to go from now on, and then so on and so forth.
Yeah.
Where it's kind of like I mean, dude, you just built a library,
Yeah, you
you know?
really do. It's like same thing with me is like, hey, when I'm like coloring or even outside filming, right? It's like, hey, I know when I first started filmmaking, I'm like, this is what the camera is doing in frame. I think I can do that if I do this, right? Like if I
Hmm.
mimic my camera movement, I'm sure it'll get the shot that I really like in like, I don't know, Blade Runner or something. Um but the more, and then I bring it back into my editing software and I'm like, wait, that doesn't look anything like what I was envisioning, right? Like the framing's all crap, the composition's all ducked up, and I just didn't realize, like, hey, what the hell am I doing? So what I've done each time is actually I've had like I don't know if you do this, but like I usually have like a notepad next to me
Hmm.
when I like bring it all the while I'm editing a project or something.
Hmm.
um and I always, when I look back, I always, make notes of like, cool, that's what went wrong, that's what went wrong, so like these are things I could fix next time around.
Yeah.
And that's helped me a lot, actually, when I'm doing a documentary. I'm like, hey, I need to get more wide shots, I need to get more, or if like the story allows me to get more wide shots, and I need to get more, I need to hold the shot for longer, right? Be more stable on that. Stop running around and being like scattered brain almost. Um, and that's really helped me on that end grow as a director or something.
Yeah, I think for sure. I think a lot of people do that in their own way, like just keeping tally of what we need to work on. For me
Mm-hmm.
personally, dude, I mean, like going through my Instagram, seeing the frame grabs, going through my website, seeing the stills and like the links to the work, and then rewatching the work. I
Hmm.
mean, all that in a way is just like a big notepad or like a virtual notepad of like,
Definitely.
yo, I could have done so much better on this shot, or I could have done this better,
Hmm.
or maybe I should have, or it reminds me of prep and like what I should have done in prep, or like how I should have gone about handling situation. I mean, but
Yeah.
again, I mean, dude, that's just life, man. You just
Yeah.
like, you screw up and then you learn. It's like hopefully you don't make the same mistake again.
Honestly, I mean that's
Because
the fun thing about it, right? Like once you learn,
yeah,
you go back into it. You're like, whoa, I didn't make that mistake this time, and now it looks better, or something like that. But I'm the kind of person who always finds something wrong with the project, right? And I'm like, well, it happened. I did it. I don't know if I really like it too much, but I'm like, I always set myself hard due dates for it. I'm like, hey, by this date, this project has to be out. I don't care what's going on in the world. I don't care what's going on like at home or anything. We're not reshooting the project. We're not doing this, or we're not re-editing or recolor. I'm not, fiddling around with it. I make sure the pre-production is good enough for me to, take it, film everything that I need to film, and then once it's in the bay, I'm like, cut it up, post it. That's it. It's gone. It's in the world now, and there you go. Like if I make myself like actually sit, if the project actually sits there for too long,
hmm
one, either it never sees the light of day, which has happened to a lot of my projects where I'm like halfway editing and I'm like, I'm just not feeling it, and then I've never touched it again, and I'm like, frick. Um, and that could be because like, hey, one, maybe the idea isn't strong enough, or two, like something went wrong along the way. Um, but learning and everything, and just giving myself these hard deadlines has been the biggest, push factor, the biggest reason I've been able to keep learning and growing at a faster pace.
yeah,
Yeah.
dude, that's actually really interesting you mentioned that because for me, that's been like that's been something that like I actually like what you mentioned about like focusing on these smaller parts of like, you know, was it a shot or was it the story?
Hmm.
Like something I've been thinking about is like, I mean, something I've always thought about is just like those big DPs, those big directors, those big producers that like I keep up with, and the writers as well. Like, what do they like? There's got to be a point when you get enough experience when it all becomes not effortless, but it could be like the fundamentals become so second nature that like you're not worried about like Roger Deakins. Let's just say Roger or Bradford Young or any big
Yeah.
cinematographer. Do you think they go into like a meeting or a pre-pro meeting worried about like do you think they worry about like a single shot in the sense that like it doesn't look good? Like there's got to be a
Really?
point where like you just have like 20 years of experience and like like whatever you touch is gonna
I think.
be a certain
Yeah.
level of good, you know?
Yeah, I think their mental game is like to the point where they're like, okay, I already know exactly what I need to do. I I don't know. I played tennis for a very long time, for like 8 years, right? And I
Yeah.
played to at a really high level at near the end there. And at the start, I would that's like my biggest analogy, right? Because in filmmaking, I'm not to the level where I can understand these like prolific filmmakers, right?
hmm
Um, but tennis, I was able to get to a point where I was like, okay, I'm able to my equipment, I know it's like the back of my hand. It's like an extension of my body and my mind, right? Where I don't even have to think about where I'm hitting the ball anymore. I will
hmm
do it out of instinct. Um, my aim is good enough. My shots are good enough. The repetition is there, and it's muscle memory now. And I
Yeah.
think I'm pretty sure it would probably be the same for all these like really big guys, where like someone they go in, they're like, "Hey, I already know how this shot's gonna look. Like, like I have it in my mind and I know exactly what to do to get this on film, on the screen. I know
Yeah.
exactly how to reproduce this. Um, and I think that's what I'm chasing, or that's what any of us are really chasing.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I saw, like some mentioning the lighting plot too. I think in some respect I'm getting, or I'm starting to make my way down that path.
Hmm.
Where it's just like, like whereas a year ago, like a year ago, dude, things were looking a lot different for me. Not a lot different, but I was just in a different headspace. the way I understood filmmaking, like
Really? What
oh
would
yeah,
you tell yourself like when you first started? If you were to meet your younger self when you were like thinking, okay, I'm gonna go into filmmaking, what would be like one of the biggest what's it called? Oh my god,
like a piece of
advice. Yeah,
advice.
pieces of advice. Sorry.
Honestly, I would shit, dude. I'd probably just say like do what you're gonna do,
Right? Just take
you
your
know,
you got to take your lumps.
or just like like whatever. I mean, yeah, like do what you're gonna do, because I mean, for me, like looking at it now, reflecting on it, like I don't think. So I went to school like in San Francisco,
Mhm.
and I went there for film, and I think if I stayed there, I'd be in a completely different position, because when I came to Houston, I went to HCC and I did not like the program. And I
Yeah.
think that just gave me motivation to like, yo, screw school. Like, I need to find jobs like in film.
Yeah.
Like, what am I going to do with film school? Like, I need to go to like get a job in film,
Yeah.
you know? And so I just came up through indie, and then somehow got on Solange's visual album. And
Wow.
then, yeah, that was like my first big PA job for that album. And like, Chase Irvin was the DP, and he's like one of my favorite DPs or whatever. And so like, and long story short, I ended up kind of in a way getting bumped up to G&E. So I was working on the lighting team for like the last day and a half.
Wow.
Um, yeah, and so I ended up. I mean, I was taking direct orders from him, and so. But it's also important to keep in mind that like there was a lot of people in like the big commercial market who were on that job,
Mhm.
and so that actually got me on the whole PA on like big commercials,
Yeah.
because I worked on that, and I guess they saw that like, oh, he was willing to step up to the plate and work on G&E and work
Mhm.
with lighting. That, hey, let's recommend him. And so that kind of like led to one thing to another. But I think had I stayed in San Francisco, I wouldn't have looked for those opportunities.
Yeah.
Or even if I just like settled with HCC and like getting a mediocre education, I think I would have not been where I'm at right now. I
Definitely.
think I would be like a year or two behind.
Dude, I agree.
Yeah,
I s-
simply based on the fact that like I was not happy with my education.
Definitely. I agree with that 100%. Honestly, I was in the same boat where the filmmaking stuff was like it was very discouraged like by family and stuff, right? And I completely agree with them. It's like, hey, that's not very reliable. What are you doing, right? You got to at least make sure you're able to feed yourself type of thing. I'm like, okay, I'll do nursing and stuff, and which I'm finishing up now. But now that that's finishing up, I'm like, I've the whole time I've been still working, still making, working with the camera, photography, graphic design, whatever have you. Um, and I'm learning through stuff, just online creators, right? Whether it be like online courses or um, work that other people have done, and from there it's just like making connections and just working up and like seeing like,
Hmm.
okay, I want to do this. I want to shoot a Nike commercial. How do I do that? Right? Like, how
Yeah.
am I able to get to a point where I can, like, Nike comes to me or I can pitch to Nike and be like, hey, let me shoot your next commercial.
Hmm.
And me actually fucking kill it. Because if I do it right now, I'm going to drop the ball. It's going to suck, right? No one's going to
Yeah.
like it. And I'll probably just, never touch a camera again.
Yeah.
But now it's like about the time where like I haven't talked about this publicly, but Lost Studios now has I've signed a exclusive production deal with a marketing
Uh-huh.
agency in Houston. So
Yeah.
what that entails, like all their clients and stuff, my studio, we're producing everything, whether it's commercials, photography, graphic design, um, everything, right from top to bottom, every visual
Yeah.
they could imagine. While also I'm creative director over there, working with the brands hand like day to day, trying to figure out everything for them. Um, and just taking that step is like I thought I'm pretty sure it's gonna be the right step for me to not only one get more experience behind a camera, but two be able to work with the right clients and with the right products to see, hey, this is, you know, this is my reel. This is what I'm able to make if I get full control, and that's been the biggest thing for me, honestly.
Yeah, dude. I think there's a lot of times when like we sort of don't know what we're walking into. You know,
Hmm. Yeah.
like perfect example is HEC, and like going to HEC in a way was kind of just like the push I needed. You
Hmm.
know,
Yeah.
because it pushed me out of the school. I was just like, no, dude, like I can't do this. And then being a PA was great. And then towards the end of it, like towards the end of last year, I was like, yeah, dude, like I can't keep doing this,
Yeah.
because like I didn't get into this to like drive a 15 pass and like take the director from the hotel to set,
Yeah.
or I didn't get into this to drive the camera truck. While all of that has been super humbling and like informative in a way, because
Hmm.
I can't lie, like taking the director, the DP in the passenger, like the Mercedes like passenger van, the Sprinter van,
Hmm.
taking them from location to the hotel, I can actually chit chat with them one on one.
Oh yeah, that's probably pretty.
And
Yeah.
so those are the little bits of like being a PA that have actually been like the blessing in disguise,
Hmm.
where it's just like I can pick the DP's brain or I can pick the director's brain.
Definitely.
Obviously in a non-intrusive way, because I think there's definitely a way to be a kind of annoying about it. It's like, dude, I love your work, like, like no, like I mean, I'd like to think that I'm more slick about it because obviously like they've talked to me.
Yeah.
Um, and then even being an AC, it's like I'm literally like their subordinate, so I have to speak to them. You
Hmm.
know. So
Yeah.
then being an AC, I can just kind of pick their brain. Of course, this is all when like the time is appropriate, and I see that they're not super busy or they have a
Yeah.
downtime. Then it's like maybe I can chit chat with them and start a dialogue. So
It's all about timing, honestly. Like if someone,
yeah,
if a random comes up, or like someone I'm working with comes up and like starts talking about like a shot with me in the middle of shooting, I'm like, buddy, what are you doing? First off, it's not to be rude or anything, right? But it's like I'm in the middle of working. I'm not gonna make everyone stop because like I have to answer your question right now. Like I answer every question I get, right? Sooner or later.
mhm,
And for me when I'm on set, I always make sure everyone really knows what we're doing and like how it's gonna go, just so we're all on the same page. And when I used to work with a another company, I had interns there, so I was able to, again, I was working with them, they were working with me, they were picking my brains about all like the commercial stuff that we were doing, all the shoots, why I would light it something certain way, how I would pick like poses for models or anything like that. And I loved answering their questions, right? And I was like, cool, cool, cool. But there were also times, again, it's just like the start, right? Where you have to like, yo, could you just give me a second? Let me just get this thing done and I'll be right back to you, type
yeah,
thing.
dude, for
And
sure.
yeah, I mean,
There's definitely like there's been filmmakers that like I slide in their DMs and I'm just like, haha, like can you give me some advice? And it's like, dude, they just leave me on scene. But I get it, man. It's like
mm-hmm,
it's I honestly like you, like I try to answer questions because I think when I was coming up, that's all I wanted was just like I had like a million questions.
yeah,
Some of them were questions that like were kind of stupid to ask because I was gonna find out anyway, like
yeah,
just on my own experience. But I think I was a little impatient. And the other questions were just questions that like I think even those filmmakers like don't know.
ah, okay,
Like what does success look like for you? It's like how that's a loaded question.
oof,
Because I
what
think
does
that's different for everybody,
success?
dude. Like
Yeah,
some people like just want their family to be okay. Other people may want to work with a certain director, and again, it,
mm-hmm,
it changes, dude. That's a loaded question.
that's a,
Uh, and then other questions like, how do you go about lighting a scene? I think yeah, the person individually can answer that, but I think ultimately, me as a DP, I'm gonna find how I light a scene in my own way, like eventually.
definitely,
So I think, like I said, like there's some questions that not aren't stupid. I shouldn't say stupid, but it's like you're gonna get
immature,
there. No, it's just like you're gonna get there, man. Like don't worry
right?
about asking that question.
Yeah, I think
Um,
a lot of us. I mean, I've had the fair share of those questions to other editors I've looked up to, where it's like, hey, how'd you do this, or how do I become an editor for so and so, right? For a
mhm,
brand, for an organization. How do I do it, right? When I first started off, I was a COD editor actually. Like
yeah,
so I came from there, and like I would look up to people from like the Call of Duty scene, right? All these editors who were there, and I would always, hit them up, being like, "Hey, how'd you get this effect?" Or "Hey, how do I get into this team or something?" And I mean, I quickly realized like, "Hey, this isn't for me. I can't do video game editing for like the rest of my life." And I slowly transitioned elsewhere. But yeah, I mean, it was all stuff that I could easily like one either Google, or two is just like just they wouldn't know the answer either, because they're like, hey, I just tried some effects and it just happened, and I did this and this
Dude,
effect.
yeah.
That's like the
I
biggest.
love that.
Yeah,
Dude, when you find out that like I was listening, I forgot who I was. No, I was reading an article,
Mhm.
I was listening to a lecture from a DP. I forget his name, but he's like, he's British Society of Cinematographers. Like, he's in there.
Yeah.
But he was talking about how he was shooting a TV show, and he just went to and he was shooting the second unit. He was a second unit cinematographer, and so he was talking to the main unit DP, like the DP of the show, and he was like, "Hey man, like, can I try this stuff with the filter?" And the guy was like, the DP was just like, "Sure, just don't mess it up." And it's interesting to think that like on a network TV show
yeah,
with money behind it and like all these executives behind it, like the people at the network, like that the DP was like that these DPs are still in a way like not playing. I mean, yeah, they're playing, but they're still experimenting and having that like
Mhm.
curiosity to just explore even while they're on the clock. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And I guess it sounds kind of stupid explaining because it's like, well, when else are these DPs going to experiment? It's like, though they have to do it. Like, but it's just the fact that it was so. I think there's this. I don't know. Maybe it's just me,
No, it's
but
definitely.
I just feel like there's this sort of stigma or this idea that for some reason DPs at that level just know everything and that they don't play.
But they're still growing, right?
Yeah, but they're still growing, dude. And the whole industry is
Exactly.
growing as a whole, dude. Like the landscape of today's
I
like
mean,
I read the American Cinematographer magazine, and like I was
uh-huh.
reading the article yesterday on Honey Boy. I don't know if you've seen Honey Boy,
Nope.
but apparently like the DP, uh she sat in a tent with like her iPad and just controlled the lights that like inside the location
Really?
from the tent. And when you think about that, dude, like
Oh wow.
20 years ago, you would have not been able to do that.
Okay, that's pretty cool.
Yes.
Actually, was it so like she's not on set, or like it's more random
No, she is on set, but she's like right outside
outside the tent? Okay.
outside under like in a tent or like with the monitor so she can see
Yeah.
what the camera's seeing,
Oh,
and
okay.
she's on her iPad just controlling the lights so she
Yeah,
can
that
dial
could
them in the
never
way she
happen.
wants.
Yeah.
But like 20 years ago, dude, like that's, I mean, you would need like 5 people on every light, but
True.
in this case, dude, she's controlling it from an iPad. Like that's
That's pretty
game
dope.
changing. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
like
that's,
technology's pushing so fast.
and so that's going to change the way DPs work, and on a technical level, that's just going to change. But how that sort of affects creatively what you're able to do and what you're actually able to pack into something
Yeah.
is, it's going to change everything. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Because so much relies on scheduling and so much relies on. I think that's something that bugs me sometimes too. It's just like, wow, I personally really want for cinematography for me to feel like this very expressive and very, like how a painter paints a painting. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
it may take days, it may take months, it may take years, but they're just putting in this very, very focused time into it.
Yeah.
And on set, it's like, no, dude, you're on set. You just got picked up from the hotel. You just landed, and now you got to shoot this thing for 12 hours. Try not to go over, and make sure
Yeah.
everything happens the way it's supposed to happen. And I think, and yet, you're still supposed to create art, or you're supposed to do this thing,
Have
and
this
that's
amazing
that's a tall
image.
order, dude.
Yeah.
Because you have to do it in such a technical way. Like I think uh, it's kind of beautiful and it's kind of insane how like these DPs and these filmmakers, these directors, all these department heads just come together to like use like almost these scientific methods. It feels like science and mathematical methods
Mm-hmm.
to make like something so beautiful.
Yeah. I
Like a
mean,
movie like Honey Boy.
I need to check out Honey Boy now that you
Yeah,
talk about it.
it's beautiful, and it's only like an hour and like 45 or an hour and 50 or something.
Bet. Bet.
So it's like it's a quick watch and it goes by quick. It's it tugs at your heartstrings. It's about an
Oof.
abusive dad with the kid, but
Okay.
yeah.
So I'll definitely look into this real quick. Well, hey, we're gonna jump over to the post show here. It's for the audio only version of the podcast. The video podcast is gonna be done. You can follow David Mejia at his social links below on Instagram, Twitter. Yes, no,
Yeah.
yes,
No Twitter, just Instagram.
just Instagram, and his website down below as well. Everything's gonna be linked for him, so go ahead, check him out, give him a hey, ask him all the questions you want to ask. If he's free, he'll answer.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, I mean, in the post show, we'll be talking about how we've been trying to stay sane during this quarantine as filmmakers who are like almost every day out and about, you know, in the world, working with like tens of people, 20 people a day, you know, how we're trying to cope. And yeah, thank you very much for watching. We'll see you later.
Bye.
Bam! And that's the end of that. Now we're on to the post show, and now I'll just edit the audio on this one. What's up, post show? How you doing? So,
What up?
What up? What up? I mean, again, we definitely have to have like another podcast if you don't mind after one in like the future here, because I really want to pick out like you as a person more or less. I don't know how better to explain that, because it's like I really have this very I have this fascination with creators, right? Whether it be painters, filmmakers, musicians, right? Anyone doing like digital art or, you know, physical art. I just would like to figure out how someone ticks and like what pushes them to be or you know, create an image. And that extends to the point of I like everything creative, right? In my mind, I even think of sports or fighting as like a very creative art form, because everyone knows how to punch, right? Everyone knows, you know, how to, I don't know, kick. But the combinations and like the different, you know, layouts and how people go about kicking, punching, and everything like that, it's always different. And I think that's the beauty of life, really, is like seeing how everyone makes these minute choices. And I love dissecting, like I do that in my mind all the time, where I'm like, oh, this you know, this brand that I have here, right? Like, let's say like a streetwear brand. I'm like, this is a streetwear brand, and brand B is also a streetwear brand, but these are two completely different like feelings that I get from each brand, or even people in general. So again, definitely want to sit down and do that.
I'm definitely down for that.
Dude, so how have you been trying to cope with COVID and everything? You know, we're ordered to stay in. Not only that, a bunch of productions have been relatively just shut down. We're like, hey, we're postponing it for later in the year, maybe next year. One, for me, I know it's like affected me less, I guess. I'm more transitioning back to being an editor and stuff, where I'm like able to do all that. And do motion design stuff. So it's, you know, it's still like busy kind of thing, but now like I force myself to follow a routine almost, where like still trying to wake up early in the morning, trying not to slack off, just so I don't lose my sanity here.
I mean, for me, dude, it's kind of been, wow, I have been talking a lot about this with friends, but in a much more like superficial way. Like at first it was kind of really I don't know. I feel like I was actually having two timelines during the beginning of all this quarantine and COVID stuff, because one timeline, obviously there was a financial standpoint of like, yo, I just lost like 4 jobs in 1 week.
True.
And then the next week I lost like 3 other jobs, and they just keep coming. They just keep dropping.
Yeah.
And so there's that like financial of like, dude, how the hell am I going to make ends meet? I just bought a new car. How am I going to pay this car note?
Congratulations.
Like at the end of, thank you, at the beginning of 2020, like I moved into a new apartment, and it's like, you know, so like the rent's up, like, so I just made these life changes, and I just lost how I make money, you know? So for me, dude, that was like a huge thing. And then on the other end of it, it was just it was kind of a nice time to just be with myself, and I guess like I should say that like I quickly started working with my dad painting houses because he's like a handyman. He does kind of like he repaints houses. He like builds
Yeah.
houses and stuff. So I
Awesome.
started working with him. Just painting a house, and I kind of fell in love with it. Where I was like, oh
Wow.
wow, this is really nice to not be on set and not have to worry about the things I worry about,
Yeah. Made
and
you
just be able to like,
appreciate him, huh?
yeah, and just appreciate like it's just a totally different perspective, and knowing that like I'm still making money this way, and knowing that like this is so
Yeah.
different, like, and I kind of love it because I think for me it was such a big stray away from film, you know?
Completely opposite, right?
Yeah, dude. And so, and then also like the physical aspect of it, like it was a 2-story house that we were painting in like River Oaks,
Mm-hmm.
and it was at the beginning of quarantine, so like everybody was just like inside,
Yeah.
you know. And I'll talk about this in a second. My like the interest that I have with like how COVID has affected people, but so like the quarantine like just happens, so like everybody's inside because it's just this initial like reaction of like, oh, we have to be inside, so, and not only that, like my dad's downstairs in the first floor painting, and I'm on the second floor painting, and it's like I have this whole second floor to myself, and just like it's unfurnished, it's just this empty house, and so I was actually just in my head like just a
Oh
lot
wow.
worried about like jobs, and then like just going through the days, I was like becoming more okay with it.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and actually realizing that if I can do this and not have to be a PA anymore, and if I can do this and not have to AC anymore, just no, I would still like to AC, but like pretty much just work in film
Mm-hmm.
when the price is right and when the job is right.
Yeah. More
That's
like
power that it
when you want to, right?
right. That's power that I didn't have before.
Yeah.
Because whereas before I worked with my dad, it was this well, shit. Someone just gave me a text. Someone just called me for work tomorrow. I mean, I might as well do it because
Yeah.
it's not like I'm going to make money any other way. But now there's a luxury of like being able to be like, yo, dad, like, let me go work with you for like 2 days or a whole week,
Yeah.
and make. I mean, I make a little bit less working with my dad than I
Mm-hmm.
would working in film, but essentially it works out to be the same roughly. And quality of life is better working with my dad because, like
Get to see
I
your
think
dad.
I think the way, well, yeah, sure, but I think for me, it's much more like existential, where it's like, I think being a PA is kind of like sometimes really puts me down on my luck
Oh
because
wow.
I'll go from like DPing a short film and like feeling like I'm really making progress as a DP, and like I'm actually learning stuff, and I'm improving,
Uh-huh.
and then the next day going to be a PA, and it's like
Now you're
knowing
at
that
the
I could.
bottom of the totem pole again, right? You're like,
Or it's not only that, like just being really upset the fact that like I know I'm capable of being an AC at least and being competent in that position, yet I'm still getting the call to be a PA, and I'm just sitting here like
yeah.
at the crafty table because they don't need me on set. It's like, dude, that's not why I'm here. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I'm not here to sit and eat tangerines and eat granola bars and
You
like,
can do so much you could do so much more, right? You feel like you contribute
yeah.
way more as a DP
Or
than you
not even,
could.
dude, sometimes not even as DP, but just even as an AC, just knowing that like, yo, like I have, maybe that's more of like a selfish thing where it's like I just want to have a bigger position, and maybe
Yeah.
that's just selfish, and like I'm looking for that for some reason. That might quite possibly be it, but
Mm-hmm.
the point is that like when I do PA, it's kind of just like, dude, like honestly, like, I'd rather be at home, you know.
Yeah.
But again, it's because I need the money, and because there's this financial initiative or this financial motivation that like, it's like, okay, I'll take the job.
Yeah.
Dude, and don't get me wrong, there are some jobs where I PA and it's like, oh wow, this is actually kind of fun because I'm
Mhm.
with my friends, because
Yeah.
I have friends in film and friends that are PAs, but there's sometimes when I PA where I'm just like, dude, no way, like I can't do this anymore.
This is the last day. Last day I'm gonna do this. No more.
Yeah. And so working with my dad, I was able to get away from that, and then I was actually able to just go through the fact that like I really want to start making stuff on my own and for myself. Um,
Like personal
because
projects or
yeah,
yeah.
like, and I started writing the script, and
Mm-hmm.
I don't necessarily know if that's. I don't know. I don't necessarily know if that's like what exactly I want to be, like a director, quote unquote.
Yeah.
but I definitely know that I want to start working on projects that like at least mean something to someone,
Yeah, of course.
and not just working on
Other people's stuff.
yeah, or like I don't even mind like if it's a good friend of mine, but like this is like a project that's close to them. Like I think I want to start working on those more because after February I worked on Museo, which is like a I wouldn't say it was like I mean yes it was close to the director, but there was something so like amazing about that process making that film that I was just like yeah this is definitely what I want to do and where I want to be.
Oh yeah,
How can I get this again? And you know you just have to realize that yo like if it's not coming to me then I have to make it happen for myself.
exactly.
You know, and
100%.
how that comes to fruition, that may just be as simple as me writing a script and then shooting it and then having it be a really shitty, terrible thing. But knowing that like I got my ass out there and like made it.
Definitely.
And so I guess that leads into your bigger question of like, so how I've been handling quarantine. It's like, you know, obviously like I've taken every now and then a couple of days to work with my dad, but you know, at like the first 2 weeks I was writing, and by writing I mean like I would take like an hour like every 3 days to write. Uh, and then I quickly started getting into like doing lighting tests in my room.
I've been a big fan of those.
Yeah, dude, just like doing self portraits and like quarantine self portraits because it's like you know, I mean, waking up late, going to bed late, might as
Yeah.
well take the time to, in some shape or form, like continue to exercise my
Hmm.
my you know lighting and continue to exercise
Exactly.
and just you know continue to experiment even though I'm at home. Because that's all what this is just experimenting and like finding what I like, what I don't like, and just having it just be a genuine process because there's no one here. It's not like a friend is here, so it's not like if I want to do this for 3 hours and like sit looking at the wall for 2 hours because I'm trying to figure out what I can do better.
Definitely.
You know, like my crew members or my friends aren't there to be like, dude, like, what are you doing? Like, can we light? It's like, well, this is lighting, you know, like me just sitting, like me
Yeah.
sitting at the like, because what I do is I like have my big monitor and then like I'll just turn it to myself. So that way I'm like, even though I'm like in the shot, I can like see what's happening. And
Hmm.
sometimes I'll just sit at the screen and be like, dude, what needs to happen? You
No,
know?
like what story
Uh,
you're trying to tell?
no, just like, why don't I like this shot? What can I do? Like, why don't I like the lighting?
Oh,
What can I do? What's missing?
yeah.
What isn't working? What is working? And doing that and then actually learning from that and being like oh well now I know that I never want to do that lighting setup again because it looks crappy, or looking at it and being like this is I'm onto something here but what's missing, you know.
Definitely.
um and so again sometimes that can just be me looking at the monitor for like 10 to 15 minutes, whereas if a friend was there just kind of be like yo what are you doing.
It's like,
So it's
yo,
just a genuine process of just like being in my own space by myself, being able to just mess around.
that's dope.
Hmm.
Honestly, I think that's one of the most liberating things about the whole self quarantine thing is like right now you have the opportunity, right? Like I think we're very lucky because we're way before, we're still ahead of our prime kind of thing. Like we've barely scratched the surface in our crafts. Um, this is a great time to actually like figure out what we want and you don't have to be like the most productive person during this quarantine. I hear that a lot in like the conversation online is like there's the people who are like oh you could learn a whole nother language or you could do this and that and the other, and then the other people are like no you could be lazy and
Dude, yeah, no, absolutely hate that shit.
yeah
And that's nothing against you if you're into that. But
no
I personally am just like, dude, stop like dude, oh my god.
dude,
I,
if you
I
can't do anything during this quarantine then you were never going to do it in the first place. That's my
yeah,
opinion and my like that's how I feel about it all.
my thing is just like, yo, shut the fuck up and do your thing and like stop telling everybody like what to do. I think holy shit, dude. The whole thing with social like this quarantine thing. Okay, so I'm
Everyone's
getting on a rant here,
bored.
but like, dude, so I have like I don't like Instagram and I
Hmm.
like it. I don't like it and I like it. That's my relationship. But I'll delete it for like a week, and then I'll come back and be like, okay, cool, nice to reconnect. And then I'm like, okay, well, shit, it's been 2 days. I'm ready to delete this piece of shit thing again. And then during quarantine, I've just been like, yo, people are so annoying. Like
Yes.
with just like being like here's what I'm doing today. And it's like, dude, shut up. Like, and it's not because shut up because you're being obnoxious. It's shut up because you don't realize what you're doing to other people. Because one of the reasons that I've actually really loved quarantine in a way,
Mm-hmm.
and again, it's kind of answering your, or I guess it's touching on what I was mentioning earlier about like being in my head working on the painting the house. But when I see like filmmakers on Instagram just post that they're on set, and like all these filmmakers are on set, you know, like, oh, today's office, today's office, today's office. Like
Oh,
someone's in Italy, someone's in Canada, someone's in New York, someone's in LA. What that does to me, and this is kind of why I hate social media, it creates a toxic environment for myself, because I'm just like, dude, okay, you know what? Like, they're on set. I got to go out and like take photos at least.
ah,
And that's not a genuine process for me. That's just like doing it out of necessity
yeah,
because I have to. And so this whole quarantine thing, the whole industry is on pause right now.
definitely.
So all my favorite filmmakers are just posting their home.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I take the time to like at midnight or 1 a.m. to mess with my lights in my room, that's such a genuine
That's art.
that's just such a genuine thing for me. It's
Yeah.
not like this thing I have to do because someone's posting that they're messing around with lights at their house during quarantine, or so and so is posting this. It's because I actually genuinely want to and am excited to do it. You know, there's no innate reaction to do it because I have to. It's because I
Yeah.
want to. You know, and so that switch that's happened during this quarantine has been so nice and so rewarding
Mm-hmm.
that when I see people posting like, oh, like things you can do during quarantine, it's like, dude, stop. Like, just stop, because you don't realize what you might be doing to someone and creating a toxic cycle.
That's
You
yeah.
know, like someone may be thinking, oh fuck, like you know, like, and they might start beating themselves up about it, and that could be a toxic, destructive
Especially when they're home
position to be in.
alone doing nothing. Like,
Yeah,
you know,
dude,
you're only with your
absolutely.
thoughts. Yeah. I'm more of like the thing of like, hey, do what you want to do, right? And I'm, you know, leading by examples. Like I'm doing what I have to do to, you know, because I want to get further, right? I want to be productive. That's me. That's my whole job, right? But I'm
Right,
never on
absolutely.
social media. I'm not like, oh, you know, in the editing bay again, or oh, you know, I'm doing this shoot again, or you know, I'm not pushing it upon people. And I've never really been like that since the start of it, just because I'm like, for one, I'm just like, oh, I'm not important enough for people to really like give a fuck about, right? I'd rather
Yeah.
just post memes and just make someone laugh. And that's how I go about it. But then again, there's just these two different sides of the quarter here online where I see again, you can the 1,200 you're gonna get from the stimulus check could go towards your business and stuff, and I'm like, okay, you go do it, go ahead, but like, why are you on my feed? You know, like, why are you here telling me and talking to it? Like, you don't have no impact on my life, right? You don't have any
Yeah.
impact on my life, so why should I give a crap about you? And I think I'm in a better, you know, headspace now than I was like 2 years ago or last year, right? Where
Yeah.
in the past I would actually read that and I'd be like, oh yeah, I'm not doing enough, or oh yeah, like I could use that, or you know, just being very caught in like the run, right? Caught in the hustle, where like, oh, I gotta work. But people don't realize like if you keep working like that, it's a very, very lonely world you're going for. Is like everyone has the same 24 hours in the day, right? Like yeah, you hear that all the time. The documentary series on Netflix, Inside Bill's Brain. I really enjoyed that film because it shows a lot about Bill Gates, right? Like who he is, how is he the way he is, what he does on his day to day. But then at times it also shows you in these settings where he's out and about with friends, with his family, and it shows him outside, right? It shows him not hustling, right? It's talking about Bill Gates and him making like these fucking crazy projects, right? But it also shows a side to him that it's very human, and I think we all really do need that. It's like, I don't know how we all got caught up in this hustle culture, really, but
Yeah.
my iffy part, or like the thing I'm iffy with, is with people who complain that, you know, if I had this opportunity I would be able to do this, that, and the other. And that's where I'm like, okay, I agree with the guys. Like if you needed opportunity, this is your time to think about it and actually make that happen in one way or another for yourself. Otherwise, hey, maybe you're not in the right mental space to do it right now.
Yeah, and I think that's another thing. That's like a bigger conversation of just like this hustle mentality that I think just comes from social media, dude.
Yeah.
And it comes from like everybody putting their ideas like Instagram in specific is just such a big stream of consciousness for people where it's just like like here's what I'm doing today, here's me at work, here's
Mm-hmm.
project I'm doing. It's like, dude, I don't I think unknowingly it's become like a very unhealthy place for people,
Definitely.
and I think that's why there's such a big hustle mentality, because now we're seeing the advent of like how lucrative these digital formats can be. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Like YouTube, like Instagram, like Twitter, like TikTok. You know what I mean? Like, dude,
Yeah.
just these formats and these platforms that are just becoming every year. It seems that it's more people are just making more and more money from these platforms.
Well, not
And
only
people,
that, if you look at TikTok right now, right, and this is the thing I found really interesting is the people who are on that For You trending page, right, the one where like all the popular ones get uploaded or set aside to, and that's how you get like really
Mhm.
big views. These people, the algorithm is like kind of iffy from what I understand. Is like people don't really understand how it works, what hashtags work, what content doesn't, what content does.
Mhm.
So they're out there posting 6 times a day almost, right?
Yeah.
4 to 6 times, and that's like okay, for like a consumer standpoint, yeah, go ahead, do that. But if whenever I talk to a creative, a friend, whether it be a friend or someone I don't know, I always like to bring up the fact that if you look at the greats, right, from the past, not even like our century kind of greats, I'm talking about like Da Vinci or someone like that. Their art took years to complete. One painting, right?
Mhm.
Years or if not decades to complete. And they put their whole soul into this. And I mean, I think it's weird because now money's involved, right? And you can actually make a living because companies want to do this. They're like,
Mhm.
hey, I could hire someone and they could make, content for me, and which is amazing, right? I love it. We can all make money. We could always we could support ourselves now. There doesn't have to be a starving artist anymore. But because of that, I think people have to really focus on, and again, I think if you would like, if you would take this piece of advice, is what I've focused on is personal projects mainly.
Yeah.
Is which has been the reason for my sanity, really, is developing my own projects. Again, I have client work, and there's always client work knocking at the door. I'm blessed to say that. There's always ways to get more work, right? But personal projects, something that you write or you're very invested in from the ground up, not only does that help you get like the work that you want to work on in the future, right? Like for me, right, I want to work on like I want to do at least one commercial for like Nike, right? So
Mhm.
I'm slowly building up a way for me to shoot like either it be a content that's similar to that, right? And show my work, show my worth through that, or in another way, right, just writing something for it. But yeah, I think personal work has been really helpful. It's like it's a way for me to escape throughout all this and actually come back to being just an artist, right, or like just a creative. um and I've taken a step further where I sometimes step away from film completely and I want to go into like photography, or I step away from photography completely and go into like graphic design, or when all that's like I'm like I'm just recycling the same ideas over and over again. Then I go over to like motion design and animation, and that's just the most fun I've ever had. It's like being a kid again, right? It's like being
Mhm.
a teenager back in high school, middle school, looking at all these filmmakers or movies and stuff, and like I want to make that. I want to learn how to do that.
Yeah.
And yeah, my progress in other aspects is kind of slowed down because of this, right?
Mhm.
But I think for my own mental health, it's been way more beneficial.
Yeah, I think this whole period of like, I think that's a lot of what's going on too. Is a lot of people are spending time with themselves, whereas maybe they would have found like opportunities to leave the house,
Mm-hmm.
not be with themselves, and now you're kind of. I mean, people are still going out, dude, but like for the most part, like
Oh man.
people are staying in and like still being with themselves. Like for me, like I've only been seeing one friend
Mhm.
because I've been seeing him. He helped me paint the house when quarantine started,
Yeah.
and you know, I've been seeing him, so it's like I might as well just keep seeing him. You know, because
Yeah.
it's like, well, we've only seen each other.
Oh, okay.
Um,
That's pretty safe.
yeah. Well, you know, and that's the thing too is like I think everybody. I think a lot of people. No, I shouldn't say everybody. I think a lot of people have like the one person they've been seeing. Like for instance, a lot of people have their spouse. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
So it's just kind of like, and for me, like I just have my friend who is just like, well, I've seen you before quarantine started. I've seen you when it started, and I've continued to see it
We're
during
in
it.
this
So it's,
together, motherfucker.
yeah, it's like I saw you 2 weeks before quarantine started. It's been 2 weeks since quarantine started. I think
We're
you know,
chilling. We're
yeah, I
chilling.
think you know, knock on wood, honestly. But you know, what I mean to say is that like everybody sort of, I think a lot of people are finding opportunities to be with themselves, you know,
Yeah.
like, or at least you should. I don't want to say you should be, but like for me, like I've definitely enjoyed being with myself and like
Yeah.
being able to sit with myself and be like, what are some of the desires and what are some of the things that I want out of my profession, out of work, but also out of my own life, and
hmm
you know,
Which
dude,
are
like,
really heavy questions to answer.
yeah, and I think kind of every now and then you need to ask yourself those questions
Yeah.
because I don't know.
It
Here's my
realigns
thing.
you.
Yeah, and I think for me, like I'm a pretty like emotional and pretty like I'm pretty intact with my emotions, and like I think I'm like I have like a lot of existential crises,
Same
which is
here.
like you know, so for me to like ask myself that and realign myself, like you said, like every now and then is really important. I think other people, I've always been envious of people who like I don't know. Again, I don't go to bed with certain people, like with all these people, but like I feel like there's certain people I see or meet or have I'm friends with, and I'm just like I feel like you just go through life and you're just like not asking yourself those questions, and I feel like that actually
Mm.
might be kind of nice, you know?
Are you talking about
You
like
know, where
people who just go with the flow type thing?
yeah, people just go with the flow, and I feel like they never stop to think
Really?
about,
How do they
you know,
function?
yeah, like I don't know, dude, like
What's a day
like
to day look like for these guys?
well that's what fascinates me too because I'm over here like once a week. I'm just like I have that day where it's just like yo, like
hmm
yo, dude, like what are you doing? You
Like, are
know,
you doing
like
the
what?
right thing? Like,
Yeah, like what's going on? What's going
yeah.
on, boss? Like this ain't it. You know. Um.
That's I mean, I struggle with that too a lot actually, which is why I jump from like medium to medium almost to
Yeah.
distract myself sometimes. Because like I'm the type of person who thinks like, oh, is this gonna be sustainable like 10 years down the line, 20 years down the line? Can I be like 70 years old doing this, or am I gonna be 70 years old being able to do this type of thing? And there's always, I try pushing it back, like, as far as I can, right? I'm like, keep these feelings away from me. Distract myself, go work out, go on a run, or something. Um, but then there's always like the chain of days, right? Like there's the 3 days in a row where I'm just like, I'm not motivated to do anything because I don't know if it'll pan out. Or like it's always like, what is life? you know? It's
Yeah,
all
no, totally. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I work in film. You know, because like, what else am I gonna do? You
definitely.
know, it's like, I, I mean, dude, like, I just can't see myself doing anything else because, and that's kind of why. I mean, that's probably why I have my existential crises. I wouldn't say so often, but a lot more frequently than maybe someone else would. I don't even know,
Mm-hmm.
but I have them a lot more frequently than I'd like to have them. But, um, and I think that's because I have this desire to just
Be the best
well,
at what you do.
be the best, but also like be in a certain position. And I think every day that I'm not there just kind of drives me nuts.
Yeah.
Which you know during this quarantine thing has been actually kind of nice to like sit with and be like, yo, like why do you want to win so bad? Like what is this desire?
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, and I don't have the answers to that, but I think it's been nice to just sort of ponder it every now and then for a couple hours, or you know, like every other day, or like you know every few days. Um,
Yeah.
because I think that's why I want to like be at a certain point in my career because or reach a certain point because
Mm-hmm.
you know
I
that's what I want.
always I forgot where I read this or who I heard this from, but I've used the thing of like the three whys, right?
Uh-huh.
So like and I broke this down for myself a while back, is like, why do I want to do filmmaking, right?
Uh-huh.
And my answer was, hey, just so I can be heard, just so I know that I'm here, that I'm present, that I leave something behind, right? It's a very selfish goal of mine. Yeah, of course. Um but that's why. But then you have to ask the other question, like, okay, so why do you want to be heard, right? Why do you want to leave something behind? And it's just like, for me, it was, I wanted that validation. A lot of my work, I feel like, comes from the need for validation, not from anyone like outside, but like, or not even from myself, from my parents, right?
Mm-hmm.
I deeply care for my parents, and love them to death, and they're the I want to be able to make something in a medium that I love, and have them love it as well, right? I really want them to be like, wow, okay, yeah, you created that, that's awesome. Just need their validation on that. And then the third reason is, like, again, you ask the why again, and that's like, oh, because growing up I never felt like, again, it comes back to the point where I was discouraged and stuff, and I never felt like I could do something like this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I want to push myself. I'm like, okay, one, prove to myself and the world that I can do this, and two, make them eat their words. Like, yo, I did it. Like, what's up? Um, and then being
Yeah.
able to look back and be like, okay, I was able to contribute my 2 cents to the overall conversation, whether if I do make a feature film or not, which fucking yes, I'm gonna make a feature film. But whether that film lasts for 2 years, or whether I want to make it big enough to where 100 years down the line someone's using that as reference material, right? Or that
Yeah.
inspires something else. And I think having your work live on like that is the best. Just want to be eternal kind of thing. And I think film and something creative, like an artist here, um, that's my shot. I think that's the only way I can actually really do it, because I suck at painting. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah. I mean, fuck, dude. I think those change for me all the time, like the
Definitely,
whys.
yeah.
You know. Um. Fuck, because I think when I first started, dude, like when I started this, it was because I wanted to tell stories, and then somewhere along the lines, I was like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, because I want to win an Oscar, and then that
Ah,
morphed into like, oh, well, I just want to be the best DP in the world, and then that morphed into like back to just wanting to be a storyteller,
yeah,
and then it came back to wanting to sort of like get to know myself better through the camera.
yeah,
It became it's constantly morphed as to why, you know. And
yeah.
I don't think I'm ever gonna land on me too shit. I don't know. Maybe I will. Maybe I'll land on a final where it's just like, yep, this is why I want to do it.
I don't
But
think
I
we
do know,
ever will, though, because I feel like once you reach that, I don't think we can reach that end goal, right? Because once you do, it's just like, then there's no fun in it,
yeah.
right? I'm sorry to cut you off.
No, no, no. I mean, well, the end goal is not like it is important. Again, it changes, dude. Like I
Mm-hmm.
think at some point it was the end goal was everything and the end of everything. And then as I learned more, it's just kind of like, wait, I like this process of being dumb and like getting better,
Yeah,
and getting smarter.
I live
This
for
is
it.
at this yeah, this is actually might be just as rewarding as what the end goal, whatever that may be, is.
Mm-hmm.
You know, um, because like as the saying goes, like hindsight is 2020. Like you realize that all of that was so informative and so fruitful for you
Yeah,
that your 10 years, like those 10 years that you spent getting to your goal, were actually more enjoyable
yeah. Like, it's the
than the
chase,
goal.
right? It's always the chase.
Well, yeah, I mean, dude, like it's just like I think filmmaking is kind of amazing that way because it is always changing, and because there's so many projects out there, and obviously it's such a collaborative format, and then
Yes.
not only that, like there's so many other people involved in it, and because it is such a visual and such a it's such a communal experience, like,
Hmm.
you know, dude, like when a new really great music video comes out, everyone's blasting it on Instagram. You know, it's
Yeah.
like sharing it, and so it's a communal experience in that sense that like the communities come behind these films and these projects. You know, like you know, like Uncut Gems by the Safdie brothers. You know, like
Hmm.
they're kind of the cool kids on the block. You know,
Yeah.
so it's kind of cool to like fuck with the Safdie bros. It's like everybody's blasting Uncut Gems. Like go watch Uncut Gems. Go watch Uncut Gems. And again, that's community behind it. And so when you have these budding filmmakers next to you or ahead of you or behind you, and they're sort of doing things that you've never done or they're pushing the boundaries,
Yeah.
that's how it grows, and that's how we sort of experience things, because it's just like, oh man, I've been stuck in a rut, but there's someone outside doing something that's like kind of like groundbreaking.
Yeah. It's
I
just
want
like,
to I want to go try that. And so because it is such a collaborative thing and such a healthy competition thing, not
hmm,
competition, I don't even know if it's competition, it's just a healthy sort of like
no, definitely. It's like,
they're doing something, I want to try that.
yeah.
You
It's
know,
like,
so we're all little thieves in a way, you know what I
hmm,
mean? We're all just sort of like, oh, I like that, let me take that, you know, or it's like, oh, I like that, let me take that. And then we, you know, funnel into our own work, and next thing you know, like we're onto something, and then we're back on our own little expedition, you know,
definitely.
and then we complete that, and it's kind of like, okay, cool, like, well, what else can I do, you know? And
Yeah.
next thing you know, another 10 years have passed, and and I think that's what it comes with like musicians as well, dude. Like when musicians sort of go through that transition of like their sound is changing, I think it's because they've had enough and they've had their fun with their sound as it was before. And
Hmm.
now they're sort of trying to go into a different direction, because at the end of the day, I think musicians make music. I think it can quickly become a superficial, they make music because they need to make money,
Definitely.
and
Yeah.
so they know that like people are gonna like a good melody and people are gonna like a good production.
Yeah. A catchy song
And
will
then there's
always be played over and
right,
over.
and then there's always artists who are just like, cool, I've gotten my capital, and now I sort of want to explore the form for myself,
Hmm.
and explore it in a manner that I've always wanted to, because now
Yeah.
I'm in a position where I can. It's like you saw the same thing with like Alfonso Cuarón doing Roma on Netflix. You know, it's just this black
Yeah.
and white, very quiet, very drawn out film, and it was what he's always wanted to make. And then, you know, there's the Safdie Bros making Uncut Gems, how it's a 10-year process, but you know, these filmmakers couldn't have made it when they first started out. And it's the same thing how a musician might try something different with an album, or just a different project or an EP or a mixtape, because they felt that like, whereas before they wouldn't have been able to have the clout for it, and now it's like people, because they have such a big net and sort of such a big following, there's going to be a higher percentage of people or a higher amount of people
Yeah.
that like will actually back it, you know. And even then it might not be that for the artist, it might just be like, yo, I don't care if people mess with this, I've already gotten the amount of money, stupid amounts of money, I have what I need,
Hmm.
and this is just sort of for me, and like if people like it, then people like it, and if they don't, they don't. And that's
Yeah.
powerful, and that's what I want to get to, because I want to get to a point, and I've always said this, and this is something that hasn't changed, I want to get to the point where like I can just sort of delete myself off the internet,
Yeah.
and I can just get work, you know, because the reason I keep Instagram is because of my work, you know, like I want
Yeah.
to be able to like share my work, and for if people follow, like if people find me on social media, then they can be like, oh, what does this kid do?
Hmm.
They can quickly digest it through my Instagram, you know. And so, and that's why it plays such a big role right now. But I definitely want to delete it, and definitely want to like just delete myself off of the internet, and obviously just keep my website so I can always update that. But you
Yeah.
know, the goal is to like get an agent, and to like for them to find me work, and
Yeah.
for my name to just be out there so much that like I can,
People come to you.
again, yeah, people come to me, or like I just have my connections, so like I can just sort of like see what's up and like find work that way, instead of having to like feel this necessity of having Instagram, and like, you know,
Yeah. No, because Instagram is kind of draining at times, especially when you're using it as, um, showcasing your work, right? It's like, oh, I hope someone finds it, or I have to keep updating it, kind of thing, so people know that I'm still doing this. Um, and yeah, I think I actually agree with you on that. Like that's a very good goal to have, and I think that's something I aspire to be as well. Is like, hey, people in the industry know me, and my work speaks for itself to the point where I don't really need to, like, audition really, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of like the whole thing where I don't need to audition for a part. You know, I don't need to send my show reel. I don't need to send a portfolio over. People know exactly who I am, what I do, how I do it, and you know they like me enough to like actually hire me for something. But that's a really good goal to have, dude. Good. I mean, good luck, but I know you can definitely achieve that.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, we all have that like that one thing that we want. You know
but
what
if
I mean?
you delete your social, what about the sewing streams?
That was only one time for the one time, dude. Oh my god,
Oh.
sewing is so much fun. That's another thing I've been doing during quarantine is just sewing.
Dude, I saw you make the little red heart. I think there was one on your pants and one on the face mask that you made, right?
Yeah. It's a little matching fit, dude. Like the little
Yeah.
bootleg comme de garçon.
I was like, whoa, it looks dope. Because like
Yeah, it's cool.
I've talked about on the podcast where sewing is one thing I do as well. Where like if I'm waiting for a render, if I'm getting frustrated with something, it's like the most manual thing I can do besides gardening.
Yeah.
I fucking love gardening, right? But like let's say it's raining outside or it's too hot. I pull out, you know, like thread and a needle and I just, you know, start making some designs on like pants or something or like a jacket I have. And, you know, when I saw you post about it, I was like, yo, I really want to like see it, but I was never able to make it to the sewing stream. And I was like, damn it, I'll catch it next time for sure.
Yeah, dude, it was cool, man. Like I really enjoy well, the reason I started sewing is because I mean, like I'm pretty short. I'm like 5'5", like 5'6" with my shoes or whatever. So you know, it's hard for me to find clothes that fits me just the way I like it. And I'm actually really picky about my clothes, not necessarily the brands, but just sort of the way they fit. So ever since I was a kid, dude, like I've always found it hard to find clothes for me. And so now that I'm older, I was like, dude, like I want to get into sewing because I want to like hem all my pants and like taper all my pants that don't fit me the way I want them to fit. You know, and then I bought like this sewing machine off of Craigslist and it was like shitty and like it doesn't work. I got it for like $40, so like it wasn't that bad.
Yeah.
And so I was like, screw it. So then I went to like Joann's and just got like a hand sewing kit and just learned how to do it. And so then I started like hemming all of my pants.
That's dope.
You know, and then one day I was just like, dude, like how can I like customize this more? That's another thing personally for me as a person. I've always loved putting my own little sauce on something. You know what I mean? Where it's always just like, how can I make this me? How can I make it David's? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so that, you know, another thing like, and sure, like, you know, a lot of people have done hearts, but it's like for me, it just feels like, nah, this is like my customization. You know what I mean? Like
this is my pattern, my thread.
Yeah. So, you know, I was just like, I'm just gonna do a little heart. Or actually I started to put like I was trying to do my initials actually. Like
really?
DM. Yeah. I was trying to do DM and I was like, wow, this is really hard to like stitch. And then it kind of the D ended up looking like half of a heart. And I was like, oh wait, I'm onto something.
Zoop.
Yeah, and so then I just started doing the heart, and then I was like, okay, wait, this is kind of sick, and that's how it came up. That's how it came about.
That's awesome, dude.
Yeah.
Oh man, I love.
I felt like that was like I felt like that. You just asked me how did like the new Nike start, and I was like, well, it actually started with me sewing.
It's always that story, right? No, you're gonna, you know, when your brand just pops off, maybe that's what'll happen. You're just, you know, clothing brand.
Like how did sure? It's like, you know, I was trying to do my initials on my pants, and it just becoming a heart.
Fucking Dave's heart. Ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh. You want me to cut that out? No. Oh god. Well, hey man. Oh shit, we've been going for an hour and a half. I said 15 minutes for this.
No way.
Holy crap. But hey, we'll cut the audio podcast here and we're gonna wait and pester David a little more later down the line. Preferably before and after your film museo's out. Or however that goes, and whatever
however long it goes.
Yeah.
Maybe after a couple more films, who knows?
Fingers crossed. Again, I'm definitely gonna I lost my train of thought there. I'm definitely gonna reach out to you. I'm, you know, still gonna message you every day, so be careful.
Oh yeah, dude.
But hey, if anyone's still listening and you really want to get to know David, go follow his Instagram. and his website. You know, save his website because his Instagram might be gone soon.
Well,
But-
yeah. For now, I have Instagram and I'm pretty responsive because it's quarantine, so I'm
Yeah.
at home all day. So and I just text back fast. So
Yeah,
if anybody has any questions about work or anything, I'm down to answer and talk.
super kind. He's super nice, and then he goes into a lot of details most of the time. It's like he actually like goes into nitty gritty if you ask him about stuff. And yeah, well, thank you very much, David,
Thank you
for joining us. I hope this was a pleasant experience for you.
Yes, sir.
And, we'll see y'all later. Bye.
All right, later, dude.
This man just hung up. I was gonna end the podcast. This man just hung up the goddamn. Hello?